Hello and welcome to your post-daily news update for Tuesday, February the 8th, 2021. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting, a packed edition of the show coming your way. Are you all set to go, Mr. Ting?
Boy, I hope so. Yeah, we have a lot to get through on this one.
We do. We are going to be going through all of the latest news from the past 24 hours and then scheduled to be joined by Michael Oku to discuss his recent match with Will Ospreay. Looking forward to having him on the show in about 15 minutes time. But we're going to start off with numbers coming out from Friday's episodes of SmackDown and Rampage going against the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics, which between the coverage on NBC and the USA Network doing just over 12 million viewers. So that was big competition. You also had the skills competition that the NHL was putting on, part of its All-Star weekend. Were you following the All-Star festivities, Way, from Las Vegas?
Oh, glued to my seat.
I'm sure you were probably handcuffed to your seat watching.
Glued. Yeah, I had my skates on in my house.
That's odd. Yeah, that would be not the way to enjoy the skills competition. But maybe you created a new skill right there. Indoor skating without ice. Mm-hmm. SmackDown, this would be where I would transition and say one of these shows was on thin ice, but not necessarily the case. They did 2,151,000 viewers, only down 4% in viewers this week. The demo doing a 0.51, down 8.5% from the week prior. So they were down from the go home episode going into the Royal Rumble. Again, they were facing the brunt of it going against the Winter Olympics coverage. I would say this was a show that you did not know about, Roman Reigns getting his challenger for Elimination Chamber, but they certainly built up Ronda Rousey making her decision for WrestleMania as the key promotional tool for SmackDown's episode. So I would say all things considered and what they were up against, this held up well. They were second among all network programming that night, except for the Olympics, which you're not going to be coming anywhere near.
No. I mean, we wonder if this was a pretty star-studded edition of Friday Night SmackDown. So how do you think they'll do this week?
Well, this coming week, Ronda's back. I think that these next 2 weeks, they don't really have a whole lot built up towards this Friday. Maybe this Friday will give you it'll give you a bit of an indication of what Ronda is going to mean week to week. And it also brings up the question of the best utilization of Ronda Rousey. Is it being there every single week or spacing out some of her appearances to make it a bit more special? I don't know what the answer is to that, but I also wouldn't panic either if this Friday's number is not, at a huge level. I think you want to be coming out of the Olympics, your hope would be there's just the automatic bounce back and that you don't have an audience tuning out at such a pivotal time of your season.
Isn't there some good tie in there? You do have an Olympian in Ronda Rousey appearing on your show every single week.
Well, you have Chad Gable on Monday too, but they don't really make a big deal out of that either. So I don't know if they're going to maybe
the Olympian was doing a trivia contest.
That's right. They Kurt Angle kind of broke his own news about coming in for an idea and then updated that plans have changed and now they're not bringing me in. So there goes your not a great season for the Olympians on the WWE side of things. 18 to 34 was down 13% this week. That was mainly among women, which was down over 21% this week. Rampage finished 7th for the night on cable with 540,000 viewers and 263,000 or a 0.2 in the 18 to 49 demo. They showed a greater loss week to week, down 18.5% in the demo, 10% in viewership. But their 18 to 34 audience held up very well. They were slightly up. There was basically no movement among its 18 to 34 audience, but that cannot be said for its older female viewership. So female viewership from the week prior was down almost 40%. But again, 18 to 34 women was pretty much flat week to week. So the 35 to 49-year-old women, that's where the big drop occurred from this past Friday. And men were down, but nowhere to the degree that women were from last week. And I would say this Rampage, I don't think you'd have a negative feeling on this show. I'm just saying the matches on paper, I don't think they jumped out at you in a big way. And that's the balancing act of you do have your stars in AEW that I think people look towards, your Moxleys or Danielsons and Punks and Young Bucks. But this was a show where I think they're trying to put, your Ricky Starks and Sammy Guevara into positions where they are perceived as stars, and that's going to come with sometimes less appeal to your public when they kind of have their sights on who are the stars, who are not the stars. And if there's other options, like on a Friday night, I want to watch the skills competition and a guy hitting a puck through multiple angles. That's going to be your deciding factor, or the opening ceremonies of the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be wrong to continually try to chase that higher number just by using your star power and your established stars. I feel like Rampage is a place where 10 o'clock on a Friday night, you give your exposure to your champions, people that you put your belts on, and you let the belts themselves be the stars rather than, relying on a Bryan Danielson or a Jon Moxley every single week.
Yeah, one interesting stat, though, for Rampage is that, so the Olympic coverage was split up. Like, you had the NBC coverage, which is obviously going to blanket the most of that viewership, but the USA Network was also having their coverage of it. And in men 18 to 49, Rampage actually beat out USA Network's Olympic coverage in that specific demo. So that's a notable feat. They did do well in men 18 to 49. So this week they have the Atlantic City tapings, and it seems that going into Wednesday, even more so than the Texas Death Match, it's the surprise. Like, a surprise is always going to bring about tons of speculation and curiosity over who you're bringing, and it's a double-edged sword. If it's a big deal of who comes in, it's great, but it elevates expectations so high when you're throwing out the surprise, and people's imaginations are going to go in a million different directions of who's out there. But I would say, like, those are obviously the two big things for Wednesday's show. Mm-hmm. Let's continue on, and we'll go to Game Changer Wrestling. And Brett Lauderdale announced on Monday night the first, and he said likely last, contract GCW will ever offer has been made and signed by Nick Gage. Brett Lauderdale stating that Nick has earned the right to finish his career on his terms with dignity and a focus on the future he deserves. I'm proud GCW can give him that for the hard work, sacrifice, and loyalty over 23 plus years. So Nick Gage, he's all Game Changer.
What exactly does this mean?
This means that the hopes of Nick Gage showing up in NXT 2.0 as Wallace Thunderbatch is gone. It's the most random name that could have come to my mind.
Wallace. Yeah. Okay. I didn't really think for somebody like Nick Gage that was ever in doubt. I mean, yeah, he appeared in AEW, but I didn't necessarily think that he was on the verge of signing a full-time contract with them. So I'm curious to know what the difference is for in his responsibility and in his duties. It means he doesn't he's not able to sign elsewhere.
It certainly sounds like he's starting to like wind things down. Like that's what it sounds like. Like this will be a steady paycheck for him and not needing to have that pressure of consistently going out there and working. And this is just I think brings some stability of like a regular paycheck.
Got it. So he's getting paid and he doesn't have to wrestle to get paid.
Well, it looks like there will be wrestling here, but it's not going to be, without a contract. It's like you pay when you wrestle. And this seems like this would be something where, he's now, part of the company and getting a regular paycheck.
Yeah. And I'm also curious if it comes with different responsibilities as part of the organization itself. What else is he going to be doing with them that might be different from what he already has been?
GCW goes public, and this man will be heading up the earnings calls.
Ooh, okay. You think he'll be doing the financials, maybe? Doing the spreadsheets? And
Yes. That would be fantastic.
Our fucking OIBDA this year.
There's a great sketch to be written there of Nick Gage as GCW's Nick Khan. But there we go. Congratulations to Nick Khan for getting this contract.
Nick Gage. You're confusing him.
Oh, no, I've said as their Nick Khan.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
got it.
their version of Nick Khan. But there you go. We'll move over to New Japan for a couple news and notes here. Several injuries or lingering ones. Jeff Cobb has been out since the second night of Wrestle Kingdom when he injured his patella tendon in the match against Naito. So he has been off this current Golden Series tour and will continue to be off of it. Yuto Nakashima got a head injury on Monday's card, so he's off for the rest of the tour as well. And there's also some lingering issues of people with regards to COVID protocols. So it's kind of messed up some of their cards for the remainder of this tour. But not affected is the upcoming King of Pro Wrestling match between Toru Yano and Minoru Suzuki. They are scheduled to battle for the trophy on February the 20th in Sapporo, and both have now introduced publicly their options for the stipulation. So Minoru Suzuki has suggested a handcuff death match. In this bout, there will be no disqualifications, and both men will start with handcuffs on their wrists, allowing the possibility for them to be chained to anything, including one another. Suzuki has come back and suggested the tried and true dog cage match, where the only way to win will be to lock your opponent inside of the dog cage at ringside. Voting begins February 9th on Twitter. Actually, later tonight. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Of the two options, I don't know which one I'd be more or less excited for. I mean, the handcuff match promises. I mean, I'm sure some interesting shenanigans, but once somebody gets handcuffed, I mean that could be interesting. You know, we like they did the Zack Sabre Jr. and Toru Yano handcuff match, or at least handcuffs were used in that match that ended up being really interesting throughout the G1. So it could be the same for Suzuki. A dog cage match. So you essentially have to. It's like a coffin match, you know, that sort of thing. You got to trap your opponent inside a structure. And to get there, I think we're going to have to actually watch a lengthy professional wrestling match. So I don't know. I might be with the handcuff one for this.
Yeah, I mean, this is really one that I'm going to have to do a lot of research and contemplate before I vote on Twitter of which match we're going to get between these two.
You know, what is concerning is when Suzuki won the King of Pro Wrestling, I had hoped that maybe, you know, he would be taking the whole stipulation to a more serious direction. Maybe some, you know, amateur wrestling rules, or like, you know, some sort of shoot fight rules that he would suggest. But dog cage match is not one that I was expecting from Suzuki. So it could be good, you know. I mean, I'd probably check it out either way.
Well, I don't know if this dog cage match or handcuff, whatever it is going to be the match of the year in 2022. But one match that might, in fact, get that distinction for the year 2022, at least an early frontrunner, we saw last weekend as part of RevPro's High Stakes event from York Hall, as Will Ospreay took on our guest at this time. He is the British Cruiserweight champion, and joining us here on the Post Daily News Show, Michael Oku. Michael, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm doing good. Good morning, good evening. I'm doing wonderful.
Yes, we were able to coordinate this with our time zone differences, so we thank you very much for that. And I just want to start off of what this past week has been like for you. I would imagine that this has been the most incredible response you have ever had to a match. Can you put into words just what the fallout from this match has been for you personally, and what you have heard from people?
Yeah, I mean, I can't put into words. You know, just the magnitude of love and respect that people have shown me for the match that I had. It's not, again, yeah, in terms of wrestling or anything, it's nothing that I've ever experienced before. Like I don't have a Wikipedia page, and you know, so I feel like a lot of people, most people who've watched this match are watching me wrestle for the first time, and for it to be against Will Ospreay, like we all know how good Will Ospreay is, but you know, for it to be a 5-star match, it will have to take two people to tango. And it's made a lot of people ask questions about who I am. And yeah, it's been wild.
It's a real privilege getting to talk to somebody so closely removed from, you know, such a career-changing moment of their life. And I wanted to get back to maybe the genesis of this entire thing. For people who have seen it, you know, I would say this was one of the more emotional professional wrestling bouts I've seen in quite some time. Very, very high on the storytelling elements. So how exactly did you two come about with the story involving your family and, of course, your girlfriend, Amira Blair?
Amira Blair, who I think is trying to sneak into this room and get me a tea.
Oh, hello.
Oh, look at this. What a run in here.
There you go. Look at this run. Yeah, there you go. We're
Yeah.
live. We're live now. Yeah, thanks.
Hello, everyone. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, you're,
She's a star. Yeah,
Yeah,
both of you.
I mean,
What
of
a
these-
privilege.
Yeah, please join in here because
Yeah.
you know.
Hello.
Hello, Amira. I want to say that of these 5 stars, like I think certainly several of them have to be attributed to you because you were fantastic in this entire presentation. I mean, everyone is talking about just to me that was such a huge part of this match. Just the family at ringside. It was just a tremendous story that was told over the course of those 45 minutes.
Oh wow! Well, cheers. That means a lot. Thank you very much. Oh no, my name.
oh, now you're officially
Now
an
I'm
interview.
officially here.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, but you have to give all the credit to him and Ospreay. They did all of it. The reactions were just organic because that's the way I actually get on every time I see him wrestle.
Yes.
Not interfere though.
So that's the thing. So Amira's pretty much at most RevPro shows, and she's watching me wrestle all the time, and she's very animated, probably more animated than most of the fans at the shows.
Wow.
So for there to be finally a camera at her, on her front row, it was very similar to what she does when she's not, on the job, basically.
Wrestling is real. And
I'd be curious as well, Amira, as you are kind of in that moment and the match concludes for both of you. I mean, are you aware of just you're getting the live perspective from the audience, but the idea that something special has happened here? Was that
No.
instant?
I don't feel like much has changed. I knew it would change a lot for his career. I definitely knew that this match would just be life-changing for him. As for both of us, I don't feel life has changed really for both of us. I think we're just doing ourselves. I mean, has anything changed for you? Do you think?
Well, I mean,
much has changed?
yeah. I think a lot has changed in terms of just, again, like as I was saying to you guys, how much more interest there is in me from new promotions, not just here in the UK but around the world. It's a lot of people are knocking on my door now, so it's crazy how getting something that I might even put credit to Dave Meltzer just for tweeting it. Like, he has so much influence, as we all know, that him just like putting a stamp of approval on it. People can say what they want, but I've got evidence that it changed a lot of things once he said 5 stars to the match.
Can you take us back to maybe the moments before the match and the pressure that you had? Of course, you had the match with Will prior. This time going in there and having to maybe exceed those prior expectations. Did you expect that this would turn out the way that it did?
So that's, I could have never expected it to turn out to the level that it did. But when we had our first match in Southampton a few months prior, the one thing was, the only thing is that we have to top it. We knew we did something special in Southampton. That's just the thing. It's just like, you have to top it somehow. And this was never, I don't know how inside I can go, but like, this was never the plan to have this match at York Hall, to have a return match at York Hall. There's so many things that went into place behind the scenes that allowed this to be the perfect storm to add the ref stoppages. There were so many things that happened on accident as well that just allowed it to be a thing where, like, we come back to this match at York Hall. Some of it had to do just with knowing Will's availability and not knowing when he'll be able to come back, knowing his New Japan, his obligations. So that's why Andy did that match in Southampton, just because he didn't know if he'd be able to do this match again. And then once he knew that Will was available for York Hall, it's like, okay, let's try and top this. Let's make this bigger. And the only way you can top like just good professional wrestling on its own is to add drama. And so drama was just absolutely filled with it all.
This match has been compared to the Survivor Series match between Bret Hart and Bob Backlund from 1994. Is that a match you guys had talked about? Is that a match you're familiar with? What were the influences maybe going into this one?
So, I mean, people who don't know Andy Quilden is that his favorite wrestler of all time is Bret Hart. So naturally, there has to come something that he definitely was thinking. Bob Backlund and Bret Hart. I remembered that. Like, I've watched it back. I remember when it happened, but like, I've watched it back and just remembered how like emotional that was, and it's just a memory that people like don't really forget. I don't even think it was the main event of the show, but I don't remember what the main event of that show was. But yeah, so with him being like a big fan of Bret Hart, I assume that that was like probably the biggest influence on it. And again, trying to think of a finish that I guess would be memorable, and in a way like it can be definitive. Like it was still definitive in the fact that Will won the match, but a way that I guess kept me strong, I could say. That was just a way of doing it. I'd say like in RevPro, my kind of character is someone who is bold, is brave, but also can bite off more than he can chew, and is a bit stubborn. So me going up against a heavyweight and believing I can beat him, the way he like ended me is kind of like in my head, I'm like, well, I guess that's what happens when I bite off more than I can chew.
Is there anything that you have learned coming out of this experience of, like, we have never had so much great wrestling that is so readily available week after week. You're seeing so much stuff from around the world that it becomes very difficult to stand out. And you two certainly have achieved that. We're talking about this match a week removed, and that's a lot longer than some matches are in the public consciousness. But obviously this struck a chord with people. Beyond being a great wrestling match, it was a terrific story. And I'm just curious if like there's any lessons that you have taken in the immediate aftermath of how you connect with an audience and that a match is going to stick with people.
I mean, this has been a process for years, really, from once I debuted in RevPro, even when I started wrestling 5 years ago. It was just a thing of like figuring out how I'm going to connect with the crowd. I had a thought of like, so when I started, NXT was the biggest thing, the hottest thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And I was noticing that there was a trend in terms of what fans were liking or reacting to. And it was a catchphrase, your finishing move, and your entrance. So I tried to just make sure I'm going to have a catchphrase. I'm going to make sure people know what my finishing move is. And I'll just make sure that my entrance is kind of cool. But then it became more than that when I just thought, well, it was very two-dimensional thinking. But then it just became more like when I realized that people wanted to know who I really was as a human being, and people then started to relate. And once they knew my story, once they knew that like I've been doing this for a short amount of time, I grew up a skinny kid, and like I had so many injuries when I started. Like in my first year of wrestling, I broke both my wrists, had neck injuries, and all the fans saw these setbacks happen and saw me come back from them. And then my goal was just to try and be the best wrestler I could be. And wrestling so many people along this way, like wrestling Pac multiple times, wrestling El Fantasma, Shigehiro Irie, Shingo, being given these opponents really fast-tracked my development more than I could have ever imagined. So just coming out of this match, it's given me a confidence. It's given me like a real, like a bigger confidence that I've never had before. That like the way I approach wrestling, I can just hang my hat and say like, yeah, I know what I'm doing when it comes to in the ring.
Have you gone and rewatched the match yet?
Too many times.
Yeah.
And what have you? Are you the type of person that it's difficult to watch your own work? Are you picking things apart, even something at this grand scale that's been so widely praised?
Oh my God, yes. There are so many things that I hate myself for in that match that has been, so critically like acclaimed. Obviously, there's like I can literally name like obviously when I slip, I think there's like 2 times that I slip. Even if it's just like a forearm that I'm like, that kind of weak. Why am I throwing a weak forearm? But it's just one of those things that like I'm always thinking, how can I be better? How can I make sure that like I'm not resting on my laurels? And how can I make sure that like because there's going to be an asterisk that I was in the ring with Will Ospreay. So if people then want to see more matches of me, they need to not be like, oh well, there it is. We can see now that he was carried to a 5-star match.
I mean, watching it from our perspective, we can certainly say that's not the case. It absolutely was a very equal performance from the both of you. I mean, you elevated his game, I think, as much as he elevated yours. And speaking about some of those slip ups, I mean, I kind of felt like they added to the story of the match. Here you are, the underdog. You might not be you're not supposed to be as seasoned as the guy who's main eventing the Tokyo Dome. I didn't really think it took away at all. And the fact that you ended up making contact anyway, like, it was almost just a bonus.
I remember there was like a documentary for I don't know, Raw. It was for Monday Night Raw. And it might have been like the 10-year anniversary or whatever. They were doing a documentary talking about when they started to do Raw live. And there's like a quote from Vince where he says, the reason that I want it to go live is because nothing can go wrong if it's live. And so if someone trips up, you just have to own it and say, you know what, I meant to trip up. And in the moment when I slipped, I just reacted. It's like, well, that's what happened. I slipped, and the crowd didn't like die. When like I eventually did like a run out afterwards, and when I drop kicked Will while like my foot slipped like sideways on the rope, the crowd was still with it. So that's one thing that, like, I'll always be my worst critic, but I always got to remember, well, the fans in attendance, they were still hanging by every move and every movement. So I guess that is the thing that matters. But that's a really cool way of thinking of it, in terms of like, I guess I am just going to slip up because I am inexperienced. I'm 5 years in, so it can happen.
And sometimes those things, they land in your lap and you run with it, and you can turn it into a gift. Like, it's the audience knows no better, and you just run with it and don't tip your hand that maybe it wasn't planned, but it's what's happened, and this is reality. This is part of the story now. So I don't think those are things that should be harshly viewed upon. Just as a kind of a grander question, can you give us a sense, being on the ground there, the British scene has gone through quite a lot over the last several years. Can you give us a sense of where the scene is since crowds have been returning? There's been a lot from just people that have left the scene, the speaking out movement. Give us a sense of just where the overall health is of British wrestling at the moment as you see it.
So what's funny is in 2019, I would have called that the rebuilding phase of the British wrestling scene, because it was like at 2018 that some restrictions were being placed on certain promotions, specifically RevPro, where the NXT UK guys couldn't wrestle RevPro anymore. And it just felt like the scene was very gutted. And especially, like, I remember intergender was real big. So women who were signed to NXT also couldn't wrestle intergender matches. So there was just a lot of things that were like tricks that like the scene like could like pull out and use, and it was all gone, and there's like a lot of less wrestlers. I remember when the restriction news came out, I was in the Electric Ballroom at Progress Show, and I said to myself, I have to try and take over. Like, there's a gap that has been opened. I'm going to be the person that takes over. And I just feel like when 2020 came along, things were really starting to get hot again. And ironically, it was High Stakes 2020, where Will won the British Heavyweight title, and myself, I won the Cruiserweight title. And I really was like, wow, this is the start of something cool. Then the pandemic happened. Then Speaking Out happened. And the scene got even more gutted. But it's one of those things that was the necessary thing that we had to go through, because locker rooms on the scene now are way more positive. Again, if I can speak for RevPro, it feels like a team, and we're all motivated to make this thing work. We're all motivated to put eyes on it. And I did a promo at the last RevPro show in 229 in London, and one of the things I said was one of the cool things when people are tweeting about mine and Will's match is nearly all the time there's a response in the tweet, in the thread, where someone's saying, yeah, but you have to also watch Gabriel Kidd and Akira. You also have to watch RKJ and Luke Jacobs. So they're basically saying watch the rest of the card, which is probably what I want more than anything. I want to get more eyes on the scene. I feel like there are real hot promotions in the world right now that aren't producing the quality of wrestling that RevPro are producing regularly. So if this can get way more eyes on RevPro, and then on the scene, I'm happy. I'm real happy. And I think, again, we're now in a new rebuilding phase, and I think things are getting really exciting in terms of the British scene.
You know, the story coming out of this match and the buzz surrounding this match is certainly some of the more positive speak we've heard from the British scene in quite some time. So I guess my question for you, and maybe for RevPro in general, is, you know, what is the next step? What is your next opponent? Are you already thinking about number 3 with Will Ospreay?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody's already thinking about match number 3 with Will. I don't know when that will happen. My thing now is like, I kind of put the cruiserweight title to the side while trying to grab the heavyweight title as well. But I was also at one point like tag champs while holding the cruiserweight championship. So I want to really just kind of focus on the cruiserweight championship being like the main title that can main event shows, because I have been doing that, and I want that to like, I still want it to be seen as like, it doesn't matter if it says cruiserweight. If it's a championship, then it's a big deal. And I feel like, again, this match helped that. And ideally, I would like to like travel other places to wrestle more people. But again, in terms of like making this scene healthy and making RevPro a hot company, I want people to come here to us. He got injured at PWG, but Leo Rush was announced to come to RevPro and do a few shows. There it is, perfect timing. And I mean, I'm sorry, but dibs on Leo Rush. If he's healthy, dibs, you know, because that's the match
tremendous.
That's the match I've wanted for a while, and I feel like people have tweeted about that match in the past, and just as like a pipe dream. And here he's coming. If everything works out with his shoulder, I'd love to have that match.
I think a lot of people would very much be looking forward to that. Michael, I want to thank you so much for joining us. If you have not seen the match, I would definitely recommend going out of your way to see it. It is up at revolutionprowrestling.com. It's up on their on-demand service, which you can sign up and get a free 2-week trial if you just want to go sample the match and see what else is going on at RevPro at the moment. And Michael, the floor is yours here just to promote where you can send people and what is coming up in the near future for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there you go. You can go to RevPro, rpwondemand.com. I think it takes you straight to the on-demand service. And the catalog of matches, sometimes I get surprised because sometimes I just check it and I get surprised on the people who have wrestled in York Hall and for RevPro, such as, well, if we stop right there, there's Kenny Omega wrestling with his mates in the main event of York Hall. And didn't get 5 stars, did he? But anyway, enough about Kenny Omega tweets. You can see so many, Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, Ishii, Okada, Tanahashi, they've all wrestled for RevPro, and there's such a back catalog of great wrestling on RevPro. So sign up to the on-demand service. The OJMO.com is my merch store. By all means, pick up a t-shirt, support me. If I've already got, again, loads of orders from people in the US, which has been very humbling. And yeah, just check out more British wrestling, check out more Revolution Pro Wrestling. That's pretty much what I was saying.
Congratulations on everything, Michael. This was certainly a huge moment in your career, and thanks so much for just coming on and letting us kind of pick your brain about the match. We were big fans of it, and we wish you all the best moving forward, and hope we can have you back sometime.
Absolutely, anytime. Just message me. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right, thanks very much, and all the best to Amira as well for joining us briefly as well. A huge part of the match as well.
Oh, you just messed up the camera.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
See ya.
There you go, everybody. The 5-star couple, Michael Oku and Amira Blair, joining us. There we go. So there you.
What a pleasure.
Yeah, if you want to hear our thoughts on the match, we went through it pretty thoroughly on Monday's post-daily news update. And before we get out of here, tonight, NXT 2.0 on Syfy. They have announced quite a bit for tonight, including a commercial-free match between Mandy Rose and Kaylee Ray for the NXT Women's title. We're going to see the semifinals of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. In the first match, Malik Blade and Idris Enofe take on MSK. The Grizzled Young Veterans will take on the Creed Brothers in the other semifinal match. LA Knight versus Sangha. One-on-one. Sangha.
Is this a debut? I guess a singles debut from this year.
In the character, yes, of Sangha, yes, with Grayson Waller, which I guess is probably the match they're setting up there with LA Knight and Waller. Mm-hmm. Wendy Chu and Tiffany Stratton, visa on the line.
Yes, a credit card, not an actual working visa. Which I
mean the credit card, yes. Which we will find out if Tiffany Stratton immediately canceled last week, or if this is a live card that Wendy Chu has gone out and committed credit card fraud with over the last week.
I mean, those black cards. I mean, I'm assuming it's a black card. I mean, they're guaranteed. So yeah, I don't know. Good question.
And then Dakota Kai versus Saray.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that one. You know, I mean, people are kind of mixed reactions to this Warrior of the Sun character, but against Dakota Kai, I'm sure at least in ring it'll be a good match.
Do you like the entrance? I mean, the character has kind of got its criticism, but what did you think about the entrance last week?
I mean, I'm a fan. You know, like, yeah, it's kind of hokey, it's cartoon-like, but I think it's creative. I think it makes her stand out. The schoolgirl thing, I absolutely understand the criticism, and I'm not really with it either. But I just see it more as like, you know, their attempt at Sailor Moon rather than maybe anything, I don't know, worse than that. At least I give them that credit, or that benefit of the doubt, I should say.
Well, NXT will be reviewed tonight live at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time with Davey Portman and Braden Harrington up at twitch.tv/UpNextPodcast, so you can listen to them live or download it from the Up Next feed late tonight. So look out for that as Davey slowly taking over the UK. I mean, maybe he'll be all over these shows.
I think the UK is slowly taking over post-wrestling. I mean, we got Michael Oku and Will Ospreay on in the conversation all the time now. Up next, and of course our friends at the British Wrestling Experience coming out on Thursday with some surprise announcements for their upcoming live podcast.
That is right. So look out for that on Thursday. So Wai Ting and I will bid everyone a farewell, but we are going to be back on Wednesday. That is tomorrow, live, back to our normal time of 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We had to adjust today, but back to 1 Eastern on Wednesday, and then Rewind to Dynamite Wednesday night at 10:15 Eastern, following the show from Atlantic City, New Jersey, with the Texas Death Match and the arrival of the mystery person to take on Isaiah Cassidy. So that's going to wrap it up. Thank you to Michael Oku and Amira Blair for joining us here on the Post Daily News Update, and that is it. Goodbye.